I'm glad you all showed up today to see this movie. It's got quite a history here. This, you may have seen him introduce it, but let me do it again in case he didn't read you all of his credits on his day job. This is the writer and director of the film, Howard Weiner, Dr. Howard Weiner. Who is also the professor of neurology at the Harvard Medical School, and the founding partner of MS Center and co-director of the Ann Romney Center for Neurological Diseases at Brigham and Women's Hospital, among many other things, and now a movie director. So congratulations on Howard on doing this. Of course, you know the legendary Paul Sorvino, right here. And she played Cheryl in this film. That's Pamela Dubin right there. And a producer, writer, director in her own right, and of course, Martin Landau's daughter, Susie Landau Finch. And Marty's longtime agent and a lot of other people's too. He runs Talent Works is his company, and he's been doing this for a long time. Harry Gold, right there. So I guess, Howard, the natural question is, now, you can say your age. You're not afraid to say your age. How old are you?
I'm 14 years old.
Okay.
No. I'm 73.
73. And here you've made your first, you made a documentary before this, though, so but this is your first narrative film. So tell them why, at this age, with the career that you have and the busy life you have doing that you decided the time was right to do this movie and take it on as a writer and director.
Well, although I love medicine, I always was interested in film. When I was in medical school, I used to make music videos of Beatles songs. But I became a doctor. I accomplished a lot. I was a philosophy major in college, and I made this documentary about life's big questions that don't have any answers. I have two sons. One of them inherited my creative type genes. He's here, Ron Weiner, and he's an Emmy Award-winning writer. He wrote for 30 Rock, and he writes now for Silicon Valley. And after I had finished the other movie, I said, you know, I have this book I wrote. It deals with old people, and I never could really get it published, but I'd like to make a film of it. So he said, well, write a script. So I wrote the script. And then in Boston, I met Walter Klenhart, who's here, and became an executive producer. He's a filmmaker himself and a teacher at Emerson College. And I met Walter. I said, you know, Walter, I wrote this movie, and I want to direct it. And he said, yes, Howard, and I want to do brain surgery. And those are his exact words. He said, but I'll read your script, but I only usually read about 10 pages of my student's script, and, you know, I'll let you know. And I got a call back from him a couple weeks later, and he said, Howard, you know, this isn't bad. And he gave me notes on the script, took it through various stages. I'm good friends with Bob Balaban in New York, and I told him about it. He says, well, let's have a table read. So we had a table read in New York. He arranged it. Another filmmaker, Yaron Zilberman, who did Late Quartet with the late Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was at the table read. He said, oh, this is great, Howard. And he said, I have a production company. And we got the production company. There was financing set up, as happened so many times. The financing fell through. So I became a producer, and I found people to finance it. We got a casting agency. And they began sending it around, and they sent it to the amazing Paul Sorvino and the super amazing Martin Landau. They can tell you about it. Harry read the script and gave it to Martin, and to my joy, they both reacted positively to the script, and that's the story. We can talk later because we had a very interesting things we did before we shot, where Paul and I would sit with Martin and talk about the scene, kick other people off the set, that type of thing. But I was gratified that Martin and Paul were able to be in this film and bring my vision to the screen.
It's so great, and this film premiered at Tribeca, and I had seen it before, and I remember Martin Landau calling me and saying, "There's this film I've made, and I'm really proud of it," you know, and I go, "Great," and he said, "I want you to come see it," and saw it in an agency, and just like, whoa. And then when I found out your backstory, I just thought that was extraordinary that you could turn this out, and it's a very good-looking, very well-made, professionally made movie too. So congratulations on doing it. Paul, I mean, you're terrific in this, and it's sad that Martin Landau couldn't be here to talk about it with us and to see you two talking about this film. But can you talk about, from your point of view, playing Phil in this, and why that was such a juicy part? Actually, it was.
Well, it lays very heavily on my heart that he's not here. Tough. We became very close friends. He was a great actor and a great man. He was a mentor. I don't need a mentor, but he was a mentor to many others. And we have very similar backgrounds as actors, or both method actors. That's a term that nobody even knows its meaning nowadays. But it has to do with the using the principles of Stanislavski, Sanford Meisner, and other people from the group theater, Boleslavsky, all the original Russians, but it all filters down from the Moscow Art Theater. And we are all inheritors of that Actors Studio, which Martin was head of the Actors Studio West. What an amazing man. We had known each other glancingly over the years and had respect for each other. I mean, he came to see me when I did that championship season on Broadway. He came with his then wife, Barbara Bain. This is 40 years ago. And they came in looking like the most beautiful couple you've ever seen in your life. I mean, they looked like Hollywood just arrived. And I was so impressed because this was my first big gig. And here they were coming to praise me and all the rest of it. And we became, we did not see each other, except, as I said, glancingly. Then what happened here was this script was sent to me by my agent and said, "You better read this." And I read it. And I was very, very impressed with it, with the heart and the skill, knowing that this was a first-time director. And I said, because before I read it, I said, "Who's directing?" You know, because there were so many scripts you get in the first-time director, and, you know, he's a paper hanger last week, and this week is your director. And I said, "Well, he's a professor at Harvard." I said, "That's nice. My daughter went to Harvard, but that doesn't make him a director." No, that's true. My daughter graduated in '89, I think. And I said, "Well, how is this going to be any good? He's a doctor, he's a professor. All right, let me read it." I was in tears. I said, "This is a great man. He has obviously, this is a horse he's had in the stable and hasn't used it. But boy, oh boy, I hope he continues to use it. This should be the first of many. You should live 100 years more, my dear fellow, and have somebody else tell you that again." And I was just so amazed with it. And then the questions were, you didn't have Martin then. I guess he was waiting or whatever. But there were some questions of some other actors. And I said, "Not if he does it." You didn't know that, but there were some other guys that say, "He does it, I'm out." Because it required a person of extraordinary acting ability. The right type, of course. We all know that that's a big part of it. He should have some stellar quality, and he should have magic. But he also should be a great actor, because this is going to be a tough one, because the two actors have to really give to each other. This is more than yeah, Maria's in it. She's wonderful in it. This lovely lady's in it, Pamela. But essentially, it's what we call in the industry a two-hander. The horrible word bromance. I can't stand that. But yeah, I'm having a bromance. That's nice. I have a bromo seltzer instead. So. This, I knew, after close to 200 films, that if the fellow is not ready to give up more than he's going to take, it's like in a marriage. My beautiful wife is here. The thing we know about each other is our marriage works so well because I put her first and she puts me first. It sounds funny, but that's the way it has to work. And so as from the moment we met, first of all, I heard about it, and I said, "Oh, great, great, great. This is certainly a person who can do it." And from the moment we got together, I knew this was going to be gold. Howard mentioned that we would sit together before the scene. This is something I asked of Howard. I said, if you will grant me this, I said, because of the nature of this film, the quality of the acting, the depth of the acting, I really would like to rehearse without the crew. Because if the crew is there, you're a performer, you can't help but play to the crew. It just happens every time, and they either respond or they don't, and after 4 or 5 times they don't respond, and you start getting nervous. So I have learned, Scorsese does this, I do it, Warren Beatty does it, you get the crew out. He said, whatever you want. We did that. It worked, I think, extremely well. We put the scenes together. When they were ready, he said, I think we're ready, and he called them in, and we shot them. I can only say to you that it was, there was one other thing I said to you. I said, because the way he was written, he was a little more rock'em sock'em street guy. I said, do you mind if I make him bright? So, not that he was stupid. I said, do you mind if I make him smart? He said, not at all. So there was a lot of improvisation directed and helped along by Doctor. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I have made a career of being different people. Jeffrey Lyons got up once at a big dinner for me in New York and said, Paul Sorvino's done 100 and some movies. I've seen every one. He has never played the same character twice, never. Nor have I. Every time I've acted in any movie, it has always been a new creation, a new person. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give myself a gift. I'm going to be me. So believe it or not, I'm not the womanizer, that Phil, nor do I, nor am I a gambler. But I'm going to be me in this. This is, let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to be Paul Sorvino, and if you like it, good, and if you don't like it, ta-ta. I think it worked out. And it's me. It's what the old-time movie stars all did. It's how Jack Jack made his great career by being himself. It's by all the old-timers did this. I said, you know what? I didn't care about being a big star. It never mattered to me. I'm a tenor. I'm an opera singer. I'm a sculptor, a painter, a writer. There are a great many things I am. So just being a movie star never meant a hill of beans to me. But you know what? Let's do this one time and see what happens. I now decided, since I saw this, yeah, that's what I do from now on. The character comes to me, and I do it. Or unless I'm playing, on someone with an accent. That's a different thing, If I play Dr. Kissinger, you may remember I played Dr. Kissinger, and of course you cannot be you. You have to be him.
Wow, I had no idea that you should applaud that, actually. That was great. I didn't know you were playing yourself in this. That's great. It's great. Well, however you did it, however you approached it, the two of you together had such great chemistry.
That's what we had, and that's what it's so hard to be here without him. I envisioned, as I'm sure he did, in the marketing of this film, that we'd all be hanging out and going places together, with Dr. Weiner, and we would go. And there's such a piece cut off. Death, of course, we're all on a thread. We all know that. Anybody can go at any time. But somehow I didn't think this would happen. But we revere him. We thank God that he was part of our lives. He was an asset to this world. He gave more than he took, and he gave us an awful lot, and he gave me an awful lot. And I hope I gave him what he gave me.
Definitely. Pamela, I have to ask you, what was it like working with these guys?
It was a wonderful project to work on, and it was a gift to work with Marty. We all really miss him. He was funny, and he was kind, and everyone feels like, there are people from the Actors Studio here, and everyone felt on the set like he was their best friend. He was wonderful and easy and funny. And one of the last conversations I had with Marty was on his birthday, and he didn't like anybody celebrating his birthday. He was so humble. And we were talking about age, and he had said that he was up for a role, but it was with Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke and Mel Brooks. And they were playing men in their 90s, and he was too young. He was too young, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, the HBO documentary. It's about working in your 90s. He was too young.
He was too young.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, next year you'll be able to do it. He was wonderful. He was a treasure. And he was vital. And as Paul said, that he ran the Actors Studio. And he was in no way old. I was in very close proximity to him. And I tell you, he was vital.
You were in close proximity
Yes, I
to
was.
him. I want to ask about that because this movie. Oh yeah. Oh come on, we've got to. This is the good stuff. So this movie, and I want you to explain why you approached it this way. But this movie is unlike any other movie I've seen about senior citizens, for lack of a better word, there, and the vitalness there, and the sexuality. And you came out swinging on this. You decided you were going to put this on film.
So people talk about the sexuality in this film, but what I wanted to do, these are real people. And sexuality is important at every age. It's part of who we are. And one of the things I wanted to do in making the movie is people make movies about old people where they put them up on a pedestal and look up at them, or they look down at them and make them children. And what I wanted to do is look straight at them. And so Paul and Martin, they're two guys. They could be teenagers, they could be in their 40s, they could be 50. And I didn't want to be afraid of talking about sexuality. And so I put sexuality into the movie. I mean, the scene where Martin pleasures his wife. I mean, no one has ever put anything like that on the screen. But that's very real. This is between a man and a woman. This is what she feels. Every couple knows about that. And so sexuality is real. The other aspect of the sexuality is the impotence, okay? So the word impotence is easy to understand in terms of male sexuality, okay? But the fact of the matter is, as we get older, we lose our potency, okay? An athlete who's 45 or 50 can't do what he used to do. A musician can't do what they used to do. And everybody has to deal with losing some of their potency in life and their abilities as they get older. And so that's what that was about. And I think one of the great scenes in Paul was amazing in it when they talk to each other and Paul says to him, in fact, we shot that scene special. Paul said to me, this is such an emotional scene. I don't know if you remember. I don't want you to call action. I just want to get ready.
Take my own action.
I want to get ready, and I want to come in when I'm ready. And we didn't call action because it was a very emotional scene. And he says to Martin, he says, you know, we're old guys or old people, whatever he said, and we can't do what we used to do. But we try crazy things, and of course they don't succeed, both of them. But then he says, well, we do these crazy things, but we have something that other people don't have. He says, we're friends. And I think this bond that they had and the friendship and the bonding with each other is something that's at any age. There's no loss of potency for the friendship and the connection. And that's why I put that in. Now, I don't know, Paul didn't mention one other thing if he wants to at the Academy Awards. You have that Academy Awards story with Mira and Martin. Remember when she got, and you were sitting there crying?
Yeah.
Tell about that.
What do you mean, the time with my daughter when she won the Academy Award?
And Martin
When Martin what?
when Martin presented it to her.
Yeah, and it was an extraordinary situation. I mean, I didn't expect it, and I didn't expect to behave that way. You know, I being Italian, am ready with emotion, as most Italians are. But I'm still from the John Wayne era, and you don't cry like that at things like, what are you doing? And I was trying to hide it, and I started sobbing. I wasn't crying. I said, oh my God, justice was done. And the Sorvino family took a big bite of that one that it was served that night. And it's just, it was a glorious moment.
It was
So that-
anybody that was there,
The
watching.
audience, because they may not know exactly that Martin gave the.
Yeah, Martin Landau had won the Oscar the year before, and they have a tradition of the past year's winner presenting, in this case, supporting actor presenting to supporting actress, and the winner for Mighty Aphrodite was Mira Sorvino, so he was presenting it because of that reason. But everyone remembers the camera going on to Paul Sorvino, and that is one of the great moments in Oscars. Yes, go ahead.
Pete, I was just going to say, you were talking about this sexuality, and, in our society right now, we have a wonderful movement, the Me Too movement going on. I have to tell you, this set is every actress's dream to have been on, because there was such respect given. When we did the sex scene, Howard made sure that there were only essential people in the room. Everybody was respectful. There were, people in the bathroom. The costumer was there to make sure, something didn't hang out. Everyone was very, very supportive. And these are gentlemen. You don't find that so much, but I just wanted to say that there are people who are wonderful and supportive, and this set was just amazing to be on in that sex scene. Everyone was so respectful and lovely and wonderful, and I'm so proud of it. I think this is a subject matter that's not talked about, older people. We kind of, in our society, we kind of shove older people away instead of revering them. And they're well, they are, because I'm so young. But, they have wisdom and humor, and this film is so raw and so lovely and so real, and all of the actors in it are just honest and true, and I'm so honored to be a part of it, really.
Some of the casting came from the Boston area, Massachusetts area, right? You used a lot of local actors, is that right?
That's right. Yes, we used local actors. Pamela was a local actress. She actually was auditioning for a different role, and I saw that she could be in this particular role. Molly, Anne-Marie Shea, was amazing as Martin Landau's wife. She didn't have a lot of words, but she comes from Worcester, Massachusetts, and she was amazing. Is Casey here? Yeah. Where you are. Casey, who played Debbie, the nurse, is from the Boston area and did a great job. So yes, we had, and I'll tell you, we had our casting in a neuroscience lecture room at the Harvard Medical School.
Of course. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah.
Let's get a little personal here about Martin Landau with two people who knew him obviously very well. Harry, how long did you represent Marty?
I had two opportunities with Marty. One was very early in my career. Marty was actually the first name actor I ever got to represent, very early in my career. He saw something in me and actually inspired me to open up my own company. And, after I was an agent for a year and I was put in a set of circumstances, and I said to him, Marty, I'm thinking of opening up my own agency. I've only been an agent a year. I know that, but I'm thinking of doing that. He goes, I think you'll do well. You should do it. Just do it. That was it. I know him pretty well. That was one of his favorites. Just do it. And I did. And then, we were together for some years, and then there was a break, and then for the last 15.
Yeah. And what was he like as a client? I mean,
he was, the difficulty and the greatness of representing something like Marty is I took very seriously the notion that I was kind of in charge of his legacy, and he wanted to work, but there weren't a plethora of roles that were written for guys his age that would meet the level of what he deserved. And we had this conversation often because scripts would come in, I would think they're crap, he would kind of like them. I said, Marty, this is not good enough for you. So when something like The Last Poker Game comes in, it's like, oh my God, this is something worthy of Martin Landau. But then, of course, the business aspect. Okay, it's another indie. It's not a commercial film. Do they really have the money? Who are these people? Because the independent film world has really been rocky in these last 10 years. So I don't ever believe it's going to happen until the money actually hits our escrow account. Well, there were enough people involved in this film that I felt confident that this could happen, and it was then that I said, you should meet the director. He's a first-time director, some kind of Harvard law professor, I don't friggin' know. But he wrote a really good script, and this part is so great. So he said, okay, he agreed and read it and just loved it. And Howard and Marty met, and the film happened, and the money hit escrow, thank God. Wow. So that's kind of the story of that. And Marty loved this film. I think it's truly one of his greatest performances ever. I really can say that. And to any of his students who's here, there's a level of acting that he reached in this that was just so pure to me, so organic, and it's a lifetime of study that got him there. But this role of Abe he's just beautiful in it, and he and Paul were amazing together.
When you have a partner who is at a very high level, he is going to, just as in tennis, if you know anything about tennis, you know that if you play an ordinary player, your game goes down. If you play a great player, your game goes up. In this case, he is as good an actor as I have ever worked with, and I've worked with some of the greatest in the history of the cinema. And he, being that good, I said, we'll do it together, and I'll be as good as I can possibly be, because he hasn't lost it. I haven't lost it. One of the things you don't lose if you maintain some health is you don't lose your ability to act. I never did. I mean, I hate to say it, I think I'm better than I used to be. I think I'm as good now or better than I've ever been. I may have never been any good, but that's, and so I knew that this two-hander, as I said before, would be so enhanced by the fact that it was two guys who absolutely knew how to be at the top of their game given a chance. And if I hadn't given him the chance, I've done this with other actors, and they just won't, and so you just can't be great. There was, Madame Duza, the great actress, Eleonora Duza, was seen by Stanislavski, and they said, wasn't she wonderful, Maestro? And he said, her partner was bad. He said, no, their partner is never as good as Madame Duza. He said, you don't understand, her partner was bad. He wouldn't comment on the performance. And I can assure you, after a lifetime of 60 years of doing this, that when you get together with a guy like that, he and I swung. We were just like two jazz players, and I knew when his riff was ending, he knew when mine was ending, and we gave, each one of us gave to the other guy. And I'm belaboring this because it is, any actors out there, any of you have to realize, one of the things that Sandy Meisner said, it's hard to accept, but your performance is in the hand of the other fella, in the hands of the other fella. And this has never happened before to this degree in my career. So thank you, Marty. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Now, Susie, I know this is emotional for you, I can tell. Yeah. And you didn't even want to be on the panel today. But we coerced her into doing it. And you have obviously such fond stories here. But from your perspective of knowing your father and everything, what did this mean to him? And
Well, it meant a lot to him. He, one thing is he's in so many scenes with Paul. They're in the whole movie, right? And I think working on a part where there's an arc like that was extraordinary for him, and he came back saying that he had done some of his best work because he and Paul and Dr. Weiner were so free together, and that they went to heights he didn't even expect when he read the script, and that he was looser than he'd ever been in a work situation. So he was able to explore the character in a way that he didn't usually have the time to do. And I think you set the parameters for freedom somehow on that set, and the mastery that Paul's talking about. He loved it, and he felt that he had reached a certain level that he hadn't gotten to do that often since he was super young, when he was like, had beginner's luck. No, I'm kidding. But he relished that. So, and like Harry said, the script, there wasn't as many scripts that got to, I hate the word showcase, but showcase him in that way. Yeah. Allow him to be the master that he was. So.
And I saw him around town all the time, sometimes with you, sometimes not. He was everywhere. In his mid-'80s and late 80s, he was a joy for life in this business, too.
Yeah.
Harry refers to that. So when we were getting ready to do the film, I came out to meet him. He wanted to meet me. And we were sitting outside in the heat in a deli on Sunset or whatever it was, and he was wearing that jacket that he wears. He drove there in this red convertible or whatever, and I was wondering, is he going to be okay or whatever? And for 2.5 hours, he was speaking, he was acting, he was questioning. He was one of the most vibrant people I've ever met. And then he also said certain things. He says, in that one scene when I'm with Cheryl, and then afterwards there has to be something, Howard. And so we put that in where there's that look between them. And Pamela gave that look. It's amazing in that look that she gave. I know something happened. We can't go on, whatever. And he looks at her in that way. The other thing that I would say that I noticed is his eyes. And he expressed things with his eyes in this movie that I've never seen before. And I thought that was just amazing. I'm going to say one other thing. Stephen Argyle is here, and he's a composer. And his composition in the score is magnificent. And every time, Stephen, every time I watch the movie, when you talk about, we talk about film, and Paul, you know this better than I do. There's the script, there's the actors, there's cinematography, there's everything. But music goes to a different part of our brain. And to be able to trigger that part of the brain in the right way is not easy. And Stephen did that. So, Stephen, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Stephen. Yeah, it's a terrific score. I just want to talk about when you mention his eyes. To me, the essence of great screen acting is always, a lot of it is in the eyes. You don't need dialogue. You can see everything they're thinking. Martin Landau started out that way. We've always seen him with his eyes. I mean, North by Northwest, just look at that performance there. I mean, those eyes are something. And, his choices and the kinds of movies that he made and television is really an interesting thing, a legacy that won't soon go away. I want to ask you one thing before I get the audience to give me a couple of questions here. You changed the title of the movie from when I saw it. It was called The Last Poker Game, and now it's called...
Wonder why.
Now it's called Abe and Phil's. Well, you got your character name in the title here. Why did you change the name of the movie?
Do you want to know the
truth?
So the truth is...
You'll find out anyway.
So the truth... Here's the truth. So the movie comes out in theaters, but in the modern era... It's on VOD and cable and all that. So the distributor said, can you start the movie with an A or a number?
Is that right?
That's the truth.
Oh, boy.
And because it comes up quicker and you make hundreds of thousands of more dollars.
Oh, my God, you had the A.
And I had the A. And initially we were thinking of Abe's. And, well, I said Abe and Phil. And they said, no, that's too many letters. But that was wrong, and Paul and I talked about it, and Paul says, Howard, And Paul says to me, what was Abe's last poker game? And Paul was, we get along so well. There were problems on the set. We always solved them.
Never.
We always solved them.
Never had not one bad moment with you, not one, Doctor, not one.
And so I called him up. I said, no, it's Abe and Phil's last poker game. And in many ways, it is with those two guys. And as I look at it now, I like that name. When we were at Tribeca, I was talking to Robert De Niro and other people, and a guy comes up to me, he says, oh, Howard, I made a film about poker in Australia, like your film. I says, wait a minute, my film's not about poker, My film is about... So I actually, that's how it happened. It's fortuitous. Things happen fortuitous. I was just reading about Casablanca. Leslie Epstein is a close friend of mine. The Epstein brothers are his uncle and father. And there was one scene that's a classic scene, and they did it because there wasn't enough food, to go around at one time. So there's all these things that happen when you're making movies. But that's how we came up with the name, and I now like it. I think it's better. It personalizes it, and it talks about Martin. It says this is Martin and Paul Sorvino's film.
Great. Well, and it's easy to find on Netflix, obviously. So that's fantastic. Anybody got any questions here? Yeah, right there. He wants to know about that very emotional last scene and what went on.
It was very emotional, and there was the discussions with Martin about it. So this is Martin and Maria Dizia. We haven't spoken a lot about Maria. She couldn't come out here, but she did a great job, and she was able to be with these two great actors, and I was very lucky to get her. And there was crying, and there was emotion, and everybody felt it. Everybody felt it, and Stephen captured it with some of the music. When I wrote that scene, and I wrote about that, this is the death of Abe Mandelbaum and how he feels when he dies. And the emotion of the scene is that Maria says to him, you're not going to die. He says, no, I'm ready to die. I'm at peace. And he was at peace because he found out who his daughter was. He had the friendship with Sorvino. We only could do it 2 or 3 times. Martin actually liked to do scenes many times. That was one of the things about his professionalism. Can I try it like this? Can I try it like that? This we only did 3 times. They couldn't do it more than 3 times. They said that's enough. But it was an amazing scene.
Okay, and she mentioned that Phil's death scene was beautifully done. And how many days did you have to shoot on the picture?
5 weeks. It was a 5-week shoot. And Paul was amazing in that scene. As he was in everything, but he went from one aspect of his character to another aspect of his character. But he was amazing in that scene. Yeah. It was kind of amazing. A first-time director, 4 sex scenes and 2 death scenes. The hardest things to film: a death scene and a sex scene. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, the fur coat, was it real or I made it up? Well, it's part of the story. Yes, I know it. We're talking here. My mother had a fur coat, and my mother had Alzheimer's disease. And she was attached to things. And as people get older, and sometimes they become attached to things, girls like little dolls, they carry around with them, but that's where the fur coat came from. And I have these beautiful pictures of my mother and my aunt dressed in their fur coats. And that's where it came from. Yeah.
My next role is as an Alzheimer guy. It is.
Really?
Yes, in May, yeah.
Wow, because Howard is one of the people working on cure for Alzheimer's. This is one of your big stuff.
Cure me, I gotta have it.
So don't cure him until he makes a picture. Okay. Listen, guys, we have to go because they have another show coming in here. But I want to thank you all for coming out here and telling us all the stories here of the last Abe and Phil's, the last Fokker game, and of course the late great Martin Landau. And thank you, Paul Sorvino, too, for coming out today as well. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you, Pete, for coming.